SoundCartel.
From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. Today more than ever, mindfulness has practical applications for small businesses striving for greater profitability. Megan Flamer is the Director of Innovation and Capability at the Monash Centre for Consciousness and Contemplative Studies. With decades in the field, she says mindfulness practices can lead to a more cohesive and productive team. As she explains to Jeff Waters, Megan is determined to see mindfulness adopted by all Australian businesses.
You know, I think sometimes we worry that mindfulness in general is this sort of burning incense and it's going to be this Om Shanti sort of thing.
It's all very hippie.
It's very hippie that we're bringing in. And really mindfulness is just being aware. You know, so really what we're saying when we're talking about this in practical terms of coming into a workplace, it's being aware of how you're being in a workplace, how you are with your colleagues, how you talk, how you are with everybody, and being aware of the impact that you have on other people. Not so that you can conform and make sure that everyone is homogenous and everyone's completely the same, but just so that you can have better conversations, you can be more constructive together and be more aware of how you can work together for the best outcomes. That's why you're there.
And as a business manager or owner, that obviously would come in very handy for bringing along the team.
Yes, absolutely. And I think when you're looking at how the team works together, how cohesive they are, making sure that everyone understands what's going on. Mindfulness allows for a little more understanding. You know, if people are calm and present and paying attention, it's much easier for everyone to be aware of what's going on, to be clear on what instructions are, on what the strategies and goals are. And it means that everyone can be on the same page and we can be making sure that everyone's moving in the same direction together. It also creates a bit more of a space for feedback. You know, if people are aware that feedback isn't personal, for example. So a lot of mindful practices can be really powerful.
That's a hard one.
Yeah. Like if you notice, for example, that you're someone who gets really upset if someone gives you feedback and you think, oh my God, they're attacking me personally. I'm really frustrated with the boss. All of those stories and things going on in the background are happening when anyone's talking to you. Like right now, there's a little part of me in the background that's kind of like, oh yeah, I've got to pick up some hummus on the way home from work. And, you know, you're a little distracted. You're thinking of something else. So the more you can be aware that you're distracted and notice that, okay, I'm having a reaction to something that someone is saying, you can catch that reaction and you can choose how to respond. And the general effect of that is that people will be calmer, they'll be able to listen better and be able to notice what those reactions are and deal with them. It might even be like, I feel like you are attacking me personally. Could we have a conversation about that? And it gives the other person the opportunity to say, oh, I didn't mean this at all like a personal attack, or yeah, I kind of feel like you're not really pulling your weight here. And then we can have an open and honest conversation because people are being open and honest about what's actually going on in their space.
So how does this fit with emotional intelligence, or is this the same thing? We want to be aware of our own reactions as well as those of people around us.
Yes. Well, so emotional intelligence, I think we sometimes talk about that as though it's this inherent thing. You either are emotionally intelligent or you aren't. And this has been a really interesting conversation around neurodiversity in this last few years especially.
Right.
Where we're really looking at people should behave and act in certain ways. Like if you fit in and you conform to the status quo, you're emotionally intelligent, you think and act the way people expect, you talk the way that people expect you to talk. And we're finding, you know, if 10% of the population is, you know, diverse and in different areas of this spectrum, I mean, we are all along that spectrum somewhere. But, you know, we're dealing more and more with the fact that we have awareness around this diversity. And so you can be open about the fact that actually I don't process information in that way. I didn't understand what you were saying. I didn't pick up that verbal cue or that social cue. And then being able to be clear and kind with each other in all our spectrum of understanding and different ways of communicating. It does increase your emotional intelligence if you have more awareness there. So when we're looking at mindfulness and mindful awareness, we're really trying to understand, again, like how much attention are you paying to what your own emotional reactions, what your triggers are, what's going on, what's happening, in the space. Do you feel overwhelmed by what's happening in the space? And the better you get at being aware of all of those pieces, the more you're able to choose what your responses are. So if lots of people are paying attention, let's say we've got a room full of 100 people, and normally people would be smashing into each other and trying to get done whatever they're getting done and bumping and elbowing each other and not really paying attention to where everyone's going. But if you start to pay more attention to the way the people around you are moving, you start to pay more attention to, the speed at which people are moving. You start noticing you have reactions to being in the centre of the room or being at the edge of the room, and notice what your preferences are. You can start to move more fluidly through the environment. And the really cool thing about this awareness is that it's what we call pro-social. So the more you exhibit those behaviours of paying attention and noticing, it's catching to the people around you.
Yay!
Yeah. So as a boss, if you're exhibiting mindful behaviour, mindful listening, self-awareness,
then the team becomes mindful without you having to do anything.
Yeah, well, it can take a
Apart
little
from
while.
being leading by example.
But
of course.
yes, the more those behaviours are exhibited and modelled, parents to children, bosses to workers, and then in general in workplaces and organisations, the more the general EQ and mindfulness and self-awareness in an organisation starts to go up.
Fabulous. All right. So it's fairly clear that this would be a positive thing to adopt within small businesses or medium-sized enterprises. But how do I get there, Megan? How do I achieve this?
Yeah. Well, it's also not a one-size-fits-all approach. You don't want to kind of go in and give an edict like everyone's going to sit down and cross their legs and do the mindfulness after lunch every day.
You will relax.
You will relax, pay attention. But there are ways that you can make sure you're making allowances for the different types of thinking in an organisation. So at an organisational level, when you're putting together the values and the goals for the organisation, really looking at how do we incorporate what the staff need and what, our bottom line needs. How can we have conversations about that? How do we offer staff training to upskill their levels of awareness? And that could look like maybe meditation classes, like a more formal meditation class, but also giving people tools to self-reflect. So it could be, a more regular feedback mechanism or, actually appreciation models. Like we know that gratitude practice also increases the general well-being of people, puts them in a better mindset, and it also gives the organisation a bit more of a feel-good feeling. So there are lots of small, tweaks that you can make. From a greater level of self-awareness and I guess really levelling up in terms of the cohesiveness of a team, starting to look at practices over the longer term that support people's health, well-being, mental health, having conversations about making sure that people are managing their workloads, managing their well-being, giving them time to decompress, making sure that everyone is clear about what's happening. All of those small pieces put together creates a more mindful environment for a workplace.
That's Megan Flamer, Director of Innovation and Capability at the Monash Centre for Consciousness and Contemplative Studies. Business Essentials Daily is a SoundCartel podcast. Producers are Nick Schildberger, Jeff Waters and myself. Technical production by Pete Letts. I'm Nicole Goodman. Thanks for listening. We'll bring you more Be Daily next week.
SoundCartel.